Alright, so we're going to start with question number 8. Question number 8 says, what is the value of c so that negative 14 and 14 are both solutions of x squared minus c equals 158. So this is a super easy question. All you got to do is input 14 in for x. So if I put 14 here and I put it to the square, because remember 14 is now x, minus the c equals 158. All I need to do is actually solve this problem out. So I have 14 squared. 14 times 14 is 196 minus c equals 158. Okay. How do I get c by itself? Well, I need to get rid of the 196. 196, so I need to subtract that 196 from both sides. Okay. That crosses out. I can drop down my negative c equals 158 minus 196 is negative 38. Now be careful. A lot of people would just bring down c. No, you have to bring down that negative. So I need to get rid of the negative. So how do I do that? I divide it by a negative 1, divided by negative 1. All that's going to do is change that from a negative to a positive. So this is your answer. C is 38. Okay, let's move on to question number 9. Which function has zeros of negative 2 and 4? Okay, so zeros are the same thing as roots. So how we do that is we make our x. 7 will go at the bottom. Negative 8 goes at the top. Okay, so I need to figure out what two numbers multiply to negative 8 but also add to 7. So what multiplies to negative 8 but adds to 7? Well, 4 and 2 multiply to 8, but it can't give me 7. So what else multiplies to 8? Well, 8 and 1 multiplies to 8. But it also adds to 7. So if I subtract one of these numbers, so if this number is a positive, the bigger number is going to be positive. So that means my 1 is going to be the negative. 8 minus 1 is 7. Okay? 8 and negative 1 are not negative 2 and 4, so A is wrong. Let's move on to B. Once again, negative 8 goes at the top. This time, negative 7 goes at the bottom. So what two numbers multiply to negative 8 but also add to negative 7? Well, once again, I have an 8 here and I have a 7 here. Okay? Well, once again, if this number at the bottom, whatever this number is, the bigger number is that. So this bottom number is a negative. Therefore, my bigger number has to be negative. Once again, negative 8 and 7 are not negative 2 and 4. So let's go to C. C, if I make my x, negative 8 goes at the top, negative 2 goes at the bottom. So it's not going to be 8 and 1 this time. 4 times 2 gives you 8, but 4 times 2 can give us negative 2. Okay, once again, if this bottom number, whatever this is, the bigger number is that. So this bottom number is negative, the bigger number is also negative. Now, go ahead and write this down. Zeros are the opposite of my solutions of these two. So negative 4 is really positive 4. Positive 2 is really negative 2. So my zeros are these two numbers. And that is what I needed to get. Negative 2 and positive 4. That is my C. Okay? Let's move on to number 10. Which graph has zeros of negative 2 and 4? So zeros on a graph are the x-intercepts. So zeros, remember when I draw my parabola, it's just whatever hits that x-axis. So my zeros have to be hitting at negative 2 and 4. Well, currently this one hits at negative 4 and positive 2, so that's wrong. This one hits at negative 2 and positive 4, which is what I needed to get, and that answer is B. So very, very easy question right here. All you need to know is where does it hit the x-axis? Okay, Let's go down to number 11. What value is added to each of the quadratic equations below to make a perfect square trinomial? Okay, so this question, all we're trying to do is figure out what goes in this box. Remember how we did the box, completing the square? So how do I complete that square? All I need to do is do 14 divided by 2, and I need to square that answer. 14 divided by 2 is 7, and 7 times 7 is 49. So 49 is that answer. Okay. Now let's do the next one. Z squared minus 10z plus 10 plus the box. Okay. So once again, I take my negative 10, I take the b value divided by 2, and I square it. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 5 times 5, which is 25. But here's the thing. 25 doesn't just go in the box. They're trying to trick you. There's a plus 10. So if this number has to be 25, 25 minus 10 would give us 15. So it's really 15 plus 10, and that's what gives us the 25. Okay? So be careful on that one. Okay, last one. K squared plus the box, or not plus box, plus blank k plus 64. This time they gave us the boxed answer. So we need to work backwards. So I'm going to start with, I have to do the opposite of these things up here. The opposite of this up here. Okay? So what is the opposite of squaring it? The opposite of a square is the radical. So I take the radical of 64. The radical of 64 is 8. Okay? So basically what I'm doing is I'm doing the opposite of this right here. So 8. So then I got to do the opposite of this part right here. What's the opposite of division? Multiplication. 8 times 2 is 16. Therefore my answer is 16. Okay? So not too difficult of a problem. Let's move on to number 12. Number 12 says, Robert used the process of completing the square to solve the equation 2x squared minus 12x equals 6. Which equation below was included in his work? So first of all, they already did the first step for us. So we have 2x squared minus 12x equals 6. They already moved the c value down. Now, we've never done a problem where the 2 is here. So what I need to do is got to get rid of that 2, so I'm going to divide everything by 2. 2 divided by 2 is just 1, so it's just x squared. Negative 12 divided by 2, negative 6x. And I'm going to leave a space right here, so leave a little gap. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay. Now I need to do my plus the box, plus the box. So how do I figure out what number goes in these boxes? Well, remember the formula is b divided by 2, what we just did a little bit on the previous question. So I take negative 6, divide that by 2. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. And I need to do that squared. So negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. So in these boxes are going to be plus a 9 here, plus a 9 here. Okay. Now I put my parentheses, x, and all I'm doing is putting this number here, x minus 3 squared, and 3 plus 9 is 12. So this answer is A. Okay. We'll move on to question number 13. All right. The equation d equals 0.07 v squared plus 2.2 models the distance. In feet, it takes a car traveling at a speed of v miles per hour to come to a complete stop. If Autumn's car stopped after 270 feet, how fast was she traveling? Okay, so first of all, we have the distance. How far did she travel? Well, she traveled 270 feet. So I know that the distance is 270. That's going to be equal to my formula, 0.07 v squared plus 2.2 v. Okay. Now, in order for me to solve these, every quadratic must equal 0. So how do I make this equal to 0? Well, I subtract 270 from both sides. That gives you 0 equals 0.07 v squared plus 2.2 v minus 270. Okay, so now there's going to be a problem just like this. I need to set up my a, my b, and my c. So remember, the formula is ax squared plus bx plus c, and it should always equal 0. Okay, remember the a is always attached to the x squared, so this one is just attached to the v squared. The b is always attached to the variable, so the b is always attached to whatever variable you have. And c is always by itself. So my a is 0.07. Do not take the variable, only take the number. My b is going to be 2.2. Last, my c is a negative 270. Be careful, make sure you take the negative. Okay. Now, a couple things I need to add to this problem. There is a negative in front of the first box, and there is a 2 on the last box. Okay, so just be careful. On the test, it should have a negative and a 2 in the front. Okay, so now I need to plug these into the correct boxes. So, remember the formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So the first one is a negative b, so negative 2.2 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so it's a 2.2 squared, minus 4a and c. Okay, and that's over at 2 times 0.07. Okay, you'll get a point for getting that part correct. Okay, now you're going to want to use the calculator for the next part. So I'm going to pull out the calculator. Okay, and then we're going to simplify as much as we can. So I'm going to put this away for right now. There's nothing I can simplify at first, so I'm going to write it. Let's write it at the top. Negative 2.2 plus or minus radical. Now I can simplify the first part. 2.2 squared. Okay. So all I did was, oops, I did not mean to do that. 2.2 squared. 4.84. So I have 4.84. Okay. Now I can multiply these three numbers. So I multiply the negative 4. So let me show you. I multiply negative 4 times 0.07 times negative 270, sorry. So I take 4, which is negative. Where's my, right here. 4, which is negative, times 0.07 times that number by 270 negative. Should get an answer of 75.6. So positive 75.6. Okay? And that's going to be over 2 times 0.07. So 2 times 0.07. 0.14. 0.14. Okay? Now I can simplify my radical even more. So let's continue. Negative 2.2 plus or minus. Let's simplify the radical. 4.84 plus 75.6. 80.44. So 80.44. Okay, and that's going to be over 0.14. Okay, now I need to take this number and I need to square root it. So this button right here is the square root. So that gives me an 8.9. Let's just do 8.96. So I have negative 2.2 plus or minus 8.96 over 0.14. So let's talk about this one. So normally I would do my plus and my minus, but since we're talking about miles per hour, how fast was she traveling miles per hour, I can't do a negative miles per hour. So instead of subtracting it and wasting time subtracting it, all I'm going to do is I'm going to add it. Negative 2.2 plus 8.96 divided by 0.14. So normally I would do both plus and minus, but because we're talking about miles per hour, we are just going to add it. So I have 2.2 negative plus 8.96. That gives you 6.76. Now I'm going to divide that number by 0.14, and that answer is 48. Let's just round it to 48.3. Okay. Not such a difficult question. You just need to make sure you use your calculator correctly. Okay. All right. Let's move on to question number 14. Question number 14 is 2m squared plus 26m plus 59. The length is 2m plus 14, and the width is 8. So what you're going to do is you're going to set these up equal to each other. 26m plus 59 equals 2m plus 14 times that by 8. So I will admit this question is a longer question. Okay. Now, if I wanted to solve this, the first thing I need to do is I need to multiply the 8 by the 2 and by the 14. So if I multiply that, I get 16 here. Okay. And then 8 times 14 is a positive 112. Okay. I'm going to bring everything else down. Okay. Now I'm going to combine like terms. So I'm going to combine the m with the m over here and the 112 with the 59 here. So minus 16m minus 16m. I'm going to do both at the same time. Minus 112 minus 112. Remember, I'm trying to make this equal to 0 because all my quadratics will equal 0. So 2m squared. This now becomes 10m. And this now becomes negative 53. That's now equal to my 0. Okay. Now I'm going to use my quadratic formula to solve my answer. So, like I said, this is a longer problem. So I'll set it up for you. So my a is going to be 2. So I'll write that at the top. A, B, and C. So my quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b. So it's a negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 53. That's going to be over 2 times 2. Okay? Now, let's simplify this some more. So I have 10 times 10, well, which is going to be your 100. Okay? So let's simplify this. Negative 10 plus or minus the radical of 100. 4 times 2 times 53. So negative 4 times that by 2 times that by negative 53. Gives you an answer of negative 424. Sorry, that should be a positive 424. Okay? And that's going to be over 2 times 2, which is 4. Now I add these two numbers together, which would give me 524. So I have negative 10 plus or minus 524 over 4. So I take 524, square root that, gives you an answer of 2.2. Let's do 2.29. So negative 10 plus or minus 2.29. Or just 22.9. My apologies. 22.9 over 4. Okay. Now, since we're talking about length, again, we can't have a negative length, so we're only going to add here. So I'm going to do negative 10 plus 22.9 divided by 4. So negative 10 plus 22.9 and then I'm going to divide that by 4, 3.22. So this m is 3.22. Now, once again, this is a super long question. So then it says that's your m, so now we got to find our length. So I'm going to replace the m with 3.22 plus your 14. So I take my 2 and I multiply 3.22 equals 6.44, and then I'm going to add that to 14. That's an answer of 20.44. And there you go. Okay, we are not doing 15 or 16. Our last question is question number 17. So question 17, says Morgan throws a ball up in the air. The height of the ball above the ground in feet is modeled by the function h of x equals negative 16t squared plus 144t, where t represents the time in seconds since the ball was thrown. Identify the appropriate domain and range of the situation. So domains are our x, ranges are our y's. So basically what it's asking, what's our x's for this problem? Well, we know how to find that, and that's by factoring. So we're going to go ahead and write negative 16t squared plus 144t equals 0. Now, this problem is a little bit different because there is no c value. So let me explain what you're going to do. You're going to factor out that negative 16. So I take negative 16t because both of these can be factored by 16. Then I put my t value here. Okay, take my calculator out and we're going to put 144 divided by my 16. But it's a negative 16 because look at the 16. Okay, that gives us negative 9. So I put minus 9 here. And that's going to equal 0. Okay, now all I need to do is I put this problem, negative 16t, and I put it equal to 0. And then I take t minus 9 and I put that equal to 0. So basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out what the t value is for both of these problems. So how do I get t by itself here? Well, I divide by negative 16 and negative 16. Well, anything divided by 0 is just 0. So t here equals 0. And then if I want to solve for this one, I would add 9 and add 9. And t here equals 9. So my two answers are 0 and 9. Therefore, my answer choice is this one for domain. Now let's do our range. Our range is a little bit different. We're going to use that formula b over 2a. Okay, and then we're going to input that number into the equation. So if I look back at my formula, it's h of x equals negative 16t squared plus 144t. So which value is my b? Well, my b value is 144. So I'm going to erase that b and put 144 here. Instead of the a, it's going to be negative 16. Okay, so basically what this is saying is 2 times 16 negative is negative 32. So it's 144 divided by negative 32. So 144 divided by negative 32. And that answer is negative 4.5. So I'm going to input that in for my t value, and I should get my answer. So negative 16 times negative 4.5 squared plus 144 times 4.5. Okay, so 4.5 negative squared is 20.25. So 20.25. And then I'm going to put that back in parentheses because I need to multiply that by negative 16. and then I take 144 and I multiply that by 4.5. That answer is 648. So I take 648. Let's simplify some more. So I have 16 negative times 20.25. Oops, 25. That's negative 324. So negative 324 plus 648. Last thing to do is to add 648 to both sides, and your answer is 324. So equals 324. So my two answer choices are either this one or this one. Since I already did my t value, the last one is my answer choice. Okay, make sure that your name is on this. We will go over the last question together in class, and make sure you have this all completed. I will be checking this.